Welcome to the Cell Guru Show, and today we've got pretty much everything that I love doing on the show. Great phones, really good stuff, and all in the 18, 20, 25,000 rupee variety. Then we'll talk about a company that didn't do all the things that I like, which is LG. You know, with a very heavy heart, I have to tell you, I'm sure you've already heard the news that LG will no longer make smartphones. I mean, it breaks my heart, but it's also pretty obvious. I expected it, I even predicted it a few months back. Then we'll move on to something else that I think is very important, but something we ignore all the time. How to make our phones totally secure and bulletproof. That and a whole lot more on the Cell Guru Show. But before we get started with all that great stuff, let's take a look at all the news coming in from the world of mobiles.
With the problem of e-waste rising globally, Samsung has taken a step in the right direction by repurposing older smartphones. The South Korean company has partnered with the Agency for Preparation of Blindness and Yonsei University Health System in Korea to create medical devices that screen for eye diseases. Older Samsung Galaxy smartphones can be used as handheld cameras which connect to a lens for enhanced diagnosis. Using artificial intelligence, the software can analyze and diagnose the images for ophthalmic diseases. This upcycling program can address approximately 1 billion global cases of vision impairment. Reports have suggested that Twitter, which already has its audio platform called Spaces, had tried to buy the audio sensation that is Clubhouse. A Bloomberg report suggests that Twitter had talks with Clubhouse over a potential $4 billion takeover deal. However, these talks are no longer taking place as the deal has apparently gone sour. Clubhouse, which is currently iOS exclusive, is looking to expand and may soon launch an Android app.
Let's get started with Cell Guru today with our top story, the Poco X3 Pro. And Poco, what you're doing is, with every new phone that you're coming out, you're impressing us a little bit more. Now, I made this announcement last time that we'd done a Poco review, that finally they got out of their shell of just being a Me Too Xiaomi company and just coming up with phones which were rebadged Xiaomi phones or Redmi phones. Now they have pretty much everything happening on their own. They continue with this very sad situation where they have this big Poco logo, this insignia on every phone, but this time it's a little bit more subtle, so if you keep your finger in the right place, no one knows that there's a big Poco at the back. But the phone is actually really good. The Poco X3 Pro, it's a gaming phone at about 18,000 rupees. It's a high performance phone at about 18,000 rupees. So that seems like it's got it all. Does it? Let's tell you all the good and some not so good about this phone.
Poco's legacy as a game changer began with the Poco F1, a phone that redefined the amount of performance you can get for your money, and fans have been clamoring for a return to form from the brand. Enter the Poco X3 Pro, a lean, mean machine that minces no words. Yes, it is powerful, but it takes more than power to make for a great phone. Does the Poco X3 Pro have it? Let's find out in the Cell Guru review. The design of the Poco X3 Pro is bound to be attractive to the gaming crowd. There is racing line inspired strip at the back with the Poco logo sitting proudly in the middle. The matte finish looks attractive but is prone to catching scuffs. The camera island too sits proud of the surface of the phone and there's no missing it. There's no dearth of ports and you get the usual USB-C, a headphone jack and IR blaster. Moreover, Poco has smartly made use of a side-mounted fingerprint scanner that we found to be very quick at unlocking the phone. Meanwhile, the display is satisfactory but not the best in class. You see, the Poco X3 Pro has a 120Hz display, but it is of the LCD variety. The Redmi Note 10 Pro Max does better with a Super AMOLED 120Hz display. The Poco X3 Pro, however, makes it up in power and there's oodles of it. The Snapdragon 860 chipset here delivers flagship-grade performance and our testing matched it up. The UI is predictably smooth but the phone shines with gaming. You can easily play the latest and greatest like Call of Duty Mobile with the graphics maxed out without any worries. No, the phone doesn't heat up noticeably either, and this is hands down the best performing phone in this price category. The cameras on the other hand are satisfactory, and that's about it. The primary 48 megapixel camera takes well saturated shots with a decent amount of detail, but the dynamic range isn't the best. Low light shots too can be hit or a miss. The 8 megapixel ultra wide camera takes good looking images, but the color profile doesn't entirely match. And finally, we would have liked to see a higher resolution macro sensor here. Powering the show is a 5160 mAh battery, and even with lots of gaming, we could easily get a full day of charge. 33-watt charging comes in handy, and the phone goes from 0 to 100 in just about an hour. Overall, the premise is clear. This is a phone built for gamers and is easily the best performing phone in the segment. It cut corners on imaging and the display, but not enough to make it a deal breaker. For gamers on a budget, the X3 Pro, price starting 18,999 rupees, is a no-brainer and is definitely one to get.
Now let's move on to the Samsung A52. Now I'll tell you some of the reasons why people are excited about this phone. One, it looks very, very different. They've got plastic at the back and they're very proudly saying it's plastic, and by the way, that's a good thing because antenna performance really becomes good in a plastic phone. With metal, of course, it goes for a complete 6. So that's the good part, but Samsung is not shying away from the plastic. They're giving it a nice plastic look and saying it's plastic and it looks good. So good screen, great camera. It's almost as if they're giving you a flagship level phone at about 25,000-26,000 rupees. So let's tell you the things that we actually liked in this phone that are kind of flagship, and the one or two areas that they did not deliver.
Samsung seems to have mastered the art of launching smartphones at every price. Sitting in the budget price range of sub 30k is the Galaxy A52, the latest smartphone in a long line of budget devices masquerading as premium phones. Why do we say that? Well, because the A52 is almost indistinguishable from Samsung's premium lineup of devices, but only in some aspects. The design of the Galaxy A52 is where Samsung has earned the most points. The phone will definitely turn heads because of the colorful plastic back here. Gone are the days when Samsung made plastic phones that look like glass. This one fully embraces the plastic life. And when you turn the phone over to the front, you can see how it looks like a Samsung phone that costs 3 times as much. There's a flat 6.5-inch Super AMOLED screen here and a 90Hz refresh rate. Scrolling through the UI feels smooth. The screen gets bright enough at 800 nits peak brightness, and we were happy with the color reproduction here while watching our favorite videos and movies. Another good feature on the A52 is its battery. At 4500 mAh, it's not a huge battery, but the phone does manage to squeeze out every ounce out of it and easily lasts the whole day. However, there's only a 15-watt charger in the box, which means that the charging time does take a beating. The camera array on the Galaxy A52 also makes it look like a premium device. However, camera performance is nothing to write home about. There is a quad camera on the back here with a 64 megapixel main sensor, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide lens, a 5 megapixel macro and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. We weren't too impressed with the photos as they lacked a level of detail. The colors seemed a little overexposed and the macro lens also failed to focus properly. However, the camera UI retains Samsung's single take feature, which was a nice thing to see. Moving over to the front, we get a 32 megapixel selfie shooter that can take some good selfies. You can also get an ultra wide angle to your shots while using the front camera. Another aspect of the A52 that prevents it from being a flagship is its mid-range processor. The phone runs on a Snapdragon 720G chipset, and we could feel the load on the chip. With some choppy animations and frame drops, the pressure here was real. However, there is 6GB RAM, which provides some respite to the phone. A saving grace here is Samsung's software. The A52 runs on One UI 3.1, which is based on Android 11. Samsung has also promised up to 3 years of software updates for the phone, and that can be the X factor in itself for a budget Android device. The Galaxy A52 is available for Rs 26,499 for the 6GB 128GB variant, whereas the 8GB 128GB variant can be had for Rs 27,999.
Now I'm going to play a small little game with you. What are you thinking right now? I'm going to guess it. Just keep that thought in your mind and I'm going to tell you what you're thinking. You're thinking, another Samsung phone at this price point? I mean, how many are there? Is it confusing? Is it good? Well, one, I've got exactly what you're thinking, and second, I'm going to solve that problem for you. We'll compare this phone with all the others.
Now that we have seen what the new Galaxy A52 is all about, we thought to pit it against its comrades like the Galaxy M51 and the Galaxy F62, two phones from Samsung that cost about the same. What's different here? Let's find out. The latest A52 is the smallest phone of the lot with the 6.5-inch Super AMOLED screen, whereas the M51 and the F62 feature 6.7-inch Super AMOLED screens. However, the A52 comes with 90Hz refresh rate, whereas the other two have just 60Hz screens. The A52 runs on Snapdragon 720G, while the M51 features a Snapdragon 730G chipset, and the F62 runs on Samsung's in-house Exynos 9825 processor. All three devices have the exact same camera specs, featuring a quad camera layout with a 64MP main sensor, a 12MP ultra-wide lens, a 5MP macro and a 5MP depth sensor. Talking about the battery, this is where the new A52 loses some footing. It ships with a 4500 mAh cell, whereas the other two phones come with a huge 7000 mAh battery. However, the Galaxy A52 gets the more premium in-display fingerprint scanner, whereas the M51 and F62 come with a side-mounted fingerprint scanner. The Galaxy A52 is also the most expensive phone of the lot, with a starting price of Rs 26,499. The Galaxy M51 is available for Rs 22,999 and the Galaxy F62 can be bought for Rs 23,999.
And now let's go to LG, which we may not be doing on the show now for a very, very long time. In fact, maybe not at all, because LG is now getting out of the smartphone business. You know, it's actually very sad. Like I said, right at the beginning, I predicted it. I knew this was coming. Too many mistakes, too much money being lost in the smartphone division. At one time, LG was right there at the top. I mean, people used to talk about LG and Samsung phones almost in the same breath. They competed in all levels. They had flagships, they had budget, they had all kind of phones. Then they had a series of missteps and everything just went downhill from there, and they never recovered. Too many losses in the smartphone category. So they're about to go, and let's just show you some things that they did right which we'll really miss, and some things that they got dramatically wrong.
It's a sad time for the tech world, as LG announced recently that it will exit the smartphone market amid falling market share and losses to its mobile division. However, it hasn't always been this gloomy for the South Korean tech giant, which has launched some impressive devices in the past. While LG did have a few misses, there were a lot of positives in how the company went about its business too. So here are some of LG's greatest hits and some forgettable misses. Back when the Nexus lineup by Google was in its full swing, LG was a huge part of it. The South Korean giant was still at the top of its game in the smartphone market, and Google employed LG services to launch multiple Nexus devices. LG launched the Nexus 4 in 2012 and the Nexus 5 in 2013. Both phones lacked a good camera and didn't really have great battery life, but the affordable price tag and the regular software updates meant that LG was riding the smartphone wave with Google. LG has been a serial offender with marketing its devices. It hasn't been able to build a credible lineup of devices with no real consistency across its V series or the G series. Moreover, when Chinese brands like Xiaomi, Oppo and Vivo entered the Indian market, LG seemed to have lost the plot as it couldn't cope up with the new influx of devices. LG launched fewer smartphones, whereas the Chinese brands launched a new smartphone almost every day. While LG focused on bringing innovation to its lineup, it failed to capitalize on the increasing demand for value devices, which the likes of Oppo, Xiaomi and Vivo perfectly captured. LG's G series was its choice of weapon against the likes of Samsung, where LG tried to give buyers a slew of new features. The G2 cut down on bezels on the front of the device. The G3 and G4 were smartphones that offered great features without a lot of compromises. The G series also introduced the G Flex, a smartphone which had a curved back. LG put in a lot of thinking into how the phone feels in the hand of the user and introduced the new design. While LG not only kept the headphone jack at a time when every other company was moving away from it, it also kept high quality audio a mainstream feature on its devices. The LG G5 was an incredibly hyped modular phone. LG had set its sights on the future and introduced modules that a user could buy separately and enhance performance of the phone. There was a camera module that gave a boost to the smartphone camera. LG also made a module for improving sound quality with a DAC Hi-Fi audio accessory. But the modular phone never caught on with either buyers or other smartphone manufacturers, and was arguably LG's biggest miss. Next year's sequel, the LG G6, was a regular smartphone and the world bid farewell to modules and modular smartphones. LG could never really find its wings in the smartphone market after the G5 fiasco, but the Explorer project was poised to provide a solution for that. And here comes the LG Wing, a flashy new design, a unique take on the foldable smartphone trend that seemed to gain pace in the market. The Wing ideally was the perfect device to leapfrog LG's standing in the market as a unique smartphone company. The Wing was loved by smartphone enthusiasts and was just a great smartphone overall. In recent years, all of LG's phone launches in India had an eerie similarity between them. The devices either had some gimmicky feature or it was like every other smartphone on the market, but LG never priced it correctly in the country. Take the LG Velvet for example. The phone was launched in 2020, but it shipped with a Snapdragon 845 chip from 2017. Despite the obvious lack of power, LG priced this phone at Rs 49,990, making it an almost impossible phone to recommend. The Velvet was a great looking phone, but its hefty price tag and the compromise on power in 2020 meant that sales were far and few in between.
Let's take a quick break right now on the Cell Guru Show. When we come back, lots more. And now let's move on to something that we keep getting asked for, and people say, what's the one way to make my phone a bit more secure, a bit more safe, a bit more bulletproof? Well, you asked for one way. Rubina has 5.
The debate around digital privacy is all the rage, but the entryway to losing control over your data begins much closer to home. Yes, I'm talking about your smartphone. Correctly securing your phone and the data on it can reduce your chances of getting hacked or worse, risk financial fraud. Here are some of the best ways to keep your phone secure. A secure password. Now this one should be obvious to everyone, but choose a secure password for your phone. This could be a numeric PIN or a swipe pattern. Now biometric authentication and face unlock helps, but your backup password should be just as secure. You definitely don't want 111 as your password. Second way, permissions control. Now, no matter what platform you're on, all smartphones offer control over app permissions, and you should make use of these to exactly control what the app can see. From location data to access over files on your phone, you should give apps one-time permissions instead of blanket access over your data. You can even go to the permissions manager on your phone and revoke access permissions. Your calendar app doesn't really need access to your location. Third point, two-factor authentication. Now you should be using two-factor authentication for all major banking and social media services, and this is made easier using your phone. To start with, you need to enable two-factor authentication on your Apple or Google accounts. You should also make use of apps like Authy or Google Authenticator on your phone to ensure that all your social media platforms are safely secured using two-factor authentication and cannot be logged into without a second authentication PIN. Fourth way, encrypt your data. Now most modern phones come with encryption enabled by default, which means that in case your phone gets stolen, the data still remains secure. Many phones also come with a secure encrypted lockbox feature where your files are further stored away. Now this should help prevent access to data even if someone gets access to an unlocked phone. And last, use a VPN. A VPN or a virtual private network is key to ensuring that your phone stays protected when connected to the internet. The encrypted connection protects your location, your data, and your browsing history. We recommend using a paid VPN service like Nord or ExpressVPN, which don't store any logs of your data and allow you to use the internet without any tracking. These 5 ways should help in making your phone more secure.
That then is the Cell Guru Show for this week, but a lot of excitement next week, including the OnePlus 9R and a whole lot more.